We can now bring in our international affairs editor, Philip Turrell. Good morning, Philip. How did this happen?
I think there are a lot of unanswered and urgent questions, Delano, that we have got to ask now, just in the hours since this took place. How on earth was this allowed to happen? These absolutely shocking images, which I think nobody can not equate that with what they saw 2 years ago with the storming of the Capitol in Washington by supporters of Donald Trump. We're almost in like mirror type images of what we saw 2 years ago. And as we were just hearing in that report, there are questions being raised about how this is allowed to happen. How did these demonstrators get as far as these buildings, break in and cause all this trouble? Why weren't the necessary steps taken? Why weren't the law and order forces, the police, the army brought in before this to stop this from happening? I mean, it does seem quite unbelievable when you think about it that we have a newly elected president of a country. That election took place on a knife edge, 51 to 49%. The people who supported the outgoing president, Jair Bolsonaro, say that in many cases, amongst many of them, that election was stolen, just like in the case of Donald Trump. There have been messages which have been sent on Instagram, on Twitter, on other social media sites, calling for protests to take place in Brazil. And all of this went ahead, and the police and the army were overrun when push came to shove yesterday. So a lot of unanswered questions today. And I think one fundamental question is a lot of these supporters, they were brought in not from Brasilia. They came in from other areas around Brazil. Who financed that? Who paid for the buses? Who was behind it all? Who organised yesterday's event? All these questions, for the moment, we don't have the answers, but I think there's one person who is the elephant in the room, if you like, and that is Jair Bolsonaro, who's not even in Brazil right now, but in Florida.
Philip, while you were talking and we were seeing those images on the screen, there's that question of doubt, which is something that Bolsonaro did when he never really conceded defeat. Because when you lose an election, you say, didn't win, this person won. And he wasn't even there at the handover ceremony, which is exactly what Donald Trump did.
Exactly the same thing. He has never admitted defeat. Where there is a slight difference in this is that, Bolsonaro has not supported this or given his support to these actions taking place, saying people should not violate government property or invade government buildings. That's not what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump, if you remember rightly, a couple of years ago, Delano, he said, remember this day in the future. It was only 24 hours later that he condemned what had happened. And so there is a difference with that. And Bolsonaro wasn't there on the day inciting his supporters then to go in to overrun these parliamentary buildings. So there is a slight difference. But the bottom line here is that there is an awful lot of similarity between what has been going on.
We have those images actually behind you.
Brasilia, right. An awful lot of similarity between the images behind me and what we saw in the Capitol 2 years ago, almost for the day,
exactly.
The 6th of January and the 7th of January. So there are a lot of similarities. And one other question that has to be asked right now is what is the role of Steve Bannon, who was the former advisor to Donald Trump, the man who created the Make America Great slogan in the United States and advised Donald Trump during his term in the presidency. He was very close and is very close to one of Jair Bolsonaro's sons, who's been to visit Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago since Jair Bolsonaro lost the election in Brazil. What is the role that's being played there? Is there any connection between the events we saw yesterday and that visit by Bolsonaro's son to see Donald Trump?
We'll see how this pans out. Thank you very much for that, Philip Turrell there.